everyone, and welcome to the latest tempo strategy wild meta snapshot breakdown for Madness at the Darkmoon Faire. The Darkmoon Faire meta is fully settled in, and the tier 1 triad of Secret Mage, Reno Priest, and Darkglare Warlock together rule wild with an iron fist. The tier 1 decks are all very close in terms of power relative to each other, but compared to the decks in tier 2 and below, they're in a league of their own. Even so, there still remains some variety in the format, especially considering the presence of some classic tier 2 archetypes that continue to hold their own. Which decks can you expect to see during this month's climb to legend? Come join our wild meta experts as we break down the format's latest trends. As always, be sure to subscribe to the Tempo Strategy YouTube channel and ring the bell to stay up to date with our wild Hearthstone content. Now let's get started. Secret Mage is the first of the top decks that we'll touch on, and not only is it the most popular of the top tier decks, but it's also the most straightforward to play. With its powerful secrets, dominating board presence, AoE board clears, and direct burn damage, Secret Mage can usually find an edge in almost any matchup. The deck's popularity has inspired some players to play hate cards like Eater of Secrets or perceived counter decks like Odd Warrior, but these tactics have mixed results at best, since savvy Secret Mage players can often power through the hate thanks to the deck's extra draw power from Rigged Fair Game and Sage, Seer of Darkmoon. Put it all together, and Secret Mage is on the short list of decks to beat, and with no nerfs for the deck's power cards on the horizon, we don't expect this to change anytime soon. Joining Secret Mage at the top, we have Darkglare Warlock, which has been the top legend player's deck of choice throughout the Darkmoon Faire expansion cycle. Darkglare Warlock uses a wide range of card drawing and self-damaging effects to quickly ramp into a massive board dominated by giants, sometimes as early as turns 3 or 4, long before most decks have the means to fight back. Despite all the self-inflicted damage, Darkglare Warlock can be difficult to beat even when playing aggressive strategies, thanks to the deck's overwhelming board development and healing. And as for control matchups, a timely Loatheb is usually enough to lock opponents out of the game. While Darkglare Warlock may be more challenging than Secret Mage to play well, many top legend players believe the deck is unbeatable in expert hands. Reno Priest is the last of the top 3 decks, and while its popularity has dropped since the rise of Secret Mage, it's still the most powerful control and combo deck in the format. Reno Priest has a wide range of removal options and powerful Highlander cards that allow it to tackle almost any threat, and once the combo of Raza the Chained and Shadow Reaper Anduin comes online, the deck can usually finish its opponents off in very short order. With Lorekeeper Polkelt ensuring that you draw the deck's core combo and best removal options, Reno Priest is among the most consistent decks in the game, and with many of its biggest counters fading out of the meta thanks to Secret Mage's dominance, it remains one of the most reliable decks for climbing to legend in Wild. The top 3 decks have an iron grip on tier 1, but there are a few powerful Wild decks that can still hold their own. At the top of tier 2, we have Odd Paladin, which is the king of board-centric aggro decks. Odd Paladin builds relentless pressure with waves of silver hand recruits from its upgraded hero power, and with all of its AoE buffs, it can quickly convert these small minions into a lethal force. Odd Paladin struggles against the mass removal options present in both Secret Mage and Reno Priest, but against other aggro decks, it tends to dominate the board in an overwhelming fashion. Next up, we have Kingsbane Rogue, which takes a different approach to aggression by building a massive weapon and dealing over-the-top damage. Kingsbane Rogue hits the board early with its fast pirate package, but since it doesn't rely on the board completely to mount an attack, it can perform well against decks with heavy removal like Reno Priest. On the other hand, Kingsbane Rogue can struggle against other aggro decks since it doesn't always have the tools to keep the opponent's minions at bay. Still, Kingsbane Rogue remains a solid option, especially since weapon removal cards like Gluttonous Ooze are often being cut to make room for cards like Eater of Secrets. Discard Warlock is another classic aggro deck that's holding its own in tier 2, and it has survived the Darkmoon Faire meta by taking a page out of Darkglare Warlock's playbook. Along with the usual assortment of discard synergy cards, Discard Warlock is also packing a self-damage package with Darkglare that allows the deck to flood the board with minions in the blink of an eye. Thanks to its ability to storm the board quickly, Discard Warlock tends to dominate the other aggro decks in tier 2, but since it's weak against AoE removal, tier 1 decks like Secret Mage and Reno Priest tend to have the advantage. Even so, Discard Warlock has a solid enough matchup spread against tier 2 that it remains a solid option for climbing the ladder in general. Rounding up our tier 2 spotlight, Big Priest maintains its spot as one of the best non-aggro decks in the meta. Thanks to several card upgrades after Madness at the Darkmoon Faire, Big Priest can get its big minion game plan online quickly enough to keep up with Wild's accelerated pace. With all the deck's big taunts and board clears, it has dominating matchups against aggro, but its passive early game makes it a sitting duck against any deck that goes over the top, including top tier decks like Secret Mage and Reno Priest. Even with a blind spot against tier 1, Big Priest remains one of the most popular and competitive decks on the Wild ladder. Looking at the Wild meta overall at the midpoint of Madness at the Darkmoon Faire, it's definitely settled to the point of being stale, but that's not to say that there's nothing worth playing outside of the established top tiers. For instance, let's take a look at a revamp of a classic deck that's doing surprisingly well on the Legend ladder, Handbuff Paladin. This modern take on Handbuff uses Smuggler's Run, Grime Street Outfitter, and Glowstone Technician to turn a group of normally underwhelming minions into an army of massive threats that can keep up the pace with some of the best decks in the format. Once the buffs are applied, the deck reclaims the board against aggro using Animated Broomstick, and it can use the lifesteal from Vicious Scalehide and Chillblade Champion to stay healthy against direct damage from decks like Secret Mage and Kingsbane Rogue. Against removal-heavy decks like Reno Priest, Handbuff Paladin can still find a win even if it can't stay on the board by using Blessed Champion to double the size of a charge minion like Leroy Jenkins and deal the finishing blow. With this wide range of tricks, Handbuff Paladin has some serious potential, and we're eager to see how it develops as the deck trickles down out of the top legend ranks. In conclusion, the wild meta is fully settled at the midpoint of the Madness at the Darkmoon Faire expansion, and the top 3 decks are in a league of their own in the Tier 1 ranks. There are decks that remain viable in Tier 2 and below, but without any changes, we don't expect the best decks to be unseeded anytime soon. We hope the new mid-set expansion can flip the script with some meta-breaking new cards, but in the meantime, be sure to check out the full meta report on our website for all the details on the current meta. As always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell to stay up to date with our Wild Hearthstone content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.